it now! Neighbors, this has gone too far.
I never thought I'd see the day when a simple backyard project turned into a nightmare that shook our entire neighborhood. It started innocently enough, with laughter and the smell of fresh-cut lumber, but it ended with sirens, handcuffs, and a courtroom battle that exposed the ugly underbelly of suburban life. My name is John Thompson, and as a retired veteran pushing 60, I've seen my share of conflicts overseas. But nothing prepared me for the war that erupted right here in our quiet cul-de-sac in Oakridge Estates, a typical American suburb in upstate New York, where manicured lawns and white picket fences hide secrets you'd never expect. What happened to my grandson Timmy that day still haunts me, and as I recount this story, I wonder, how far would you go to protect your family from someone who thinks they're above the law? Let me take you back to the beginning, before the chaos unfolded. I've been living with my daughter Emily since I retired from the military 5 years ago. Her husband, Timmy's dad, is a long-haul trucker who's on the road for weeks at a time, so I stepped in to help with the day-to-day. Emily works as a nurse at the local hospital, pulling long shifts, and my role has always been the steady one, the guy who fixes leaky faucets, mows the lawn, and keeps things running smooth. Timmy, our energetic 8-year-old bundle of joy, is the light of our lives. He's got that boundless curiosity kids have, always asking questions and dreaming up adventures. That spring, Timmy and I decided to build a tree fort in our backyard, nestled between two massive maple trees overlooking the small pond at the edge of our property. We called it Fortress Thunderbolt, Timmy's idea, of course, because every good fort needs a name that sounds epic. It wasn't anything fancy. A raised platform on sturdy 6x6 beams, about 6 feet off the ground, with walls made from pressure-treated plywood and a slanted roof to keep out the rain. We spent weekends on it, me teaching him how to use a level and drive screws with the cordless drill. Measure twice, cut once, I'd tell him, and he'd nod seriously, his little hands gripping the tools like a pro. The air was filled with the scent of sawdust and pine, and those days felt like the best kind of therapy after my years in the service. Our neighborhood association, the Oakridge Homeowners Association, was run by Susan Fletcher, a woman in her late 50s who ruled with an iron fist. Susan was the type who measured grass heights with a ruler and sent fines for the slightest infraction, like a basketball left on the driveway overnight. To her, our fort was a visual nuisance, clashing with the pristine image she demanded for the community. She'd slipped passive-aggressive notes under our door, citing obscure bylaws about unapproved structures. I'd read them, chuckle, and toss them in the recycling. Live and let live, I'd mutter. But Susan wasn't one to back down. She saw herself as the guardian of property values, and our little project became her personal crusade. One sunny Saturday morning, as Timmy and I were putting the finishing touches on the roof, Susan stormed across the street in her crisp blazer and slacks, looking out of place amid the tools and wood scraps. Her face was pinched, like she'd bitten into a lemon. "John, this is your last chance," she barked, jabbing a manicured finger at the fort. "That monstrosity violates at least a dozen regulations. Dismantle it by tomorrow, or the association will handle it." Timmy peeked out from inside the fort, his eyes wide with confusion. I kept my cool, wiping sweat from my brow. "Susan, it's just a kid's playhouse. It's not bothering anyone. Why don't you focus on something that matters?" She huffed and marched off, her heels clicking angrily on the pavement. I reassured Timmy it was nothing, but deep down, I felt a twinge of unease. People like Susan don't make idle threats. We kept working, Timmy inside the fort pretending to defend it from imaginary invaders, while I measured the final crossbeam outside. That's when I heard the whinny, a high-pitched buzz that made my blood run cold. I turned and saw Susan back at the base of the fort, wielding a cordless reciprocating saw. The blade was already chewing through one of the main support beams. "Susan, stop," I yelled, dropping my tools and sprinting toward her. "Timmy's in there." She didn't flinch, her expression set in stone-cold resolve. The wood splintered with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. The fort groaned, twisted, and came crashing down in a heap of boards and nails. Timmy's scream pierced the air, a raw, terrified wail that I'll carry to my grave. Time froze. Sawdust clouded the air like smoke from a battlefield. Susan stood there, saw still humming in her grip, a smug glint in her eye fading into shock as reality hit. I didn't waste a second on her. I dove into the wreckage, hurling debris aside until I found Timmy trapped under a heavy plank, his leg twisted unnaturally, blood seeping through his torn jeans. He was crying, clutching at me. "It hurts, Grandpa. Make it stop." My military training kicked in asses. "Stabilize. Call for help." Neighbors came running. Alex from next door, our IT-savvy single dad, was already dialing 911. Elderly Mrs. Ellis from across the way gasped, her hand over her mouth, confirming she'd seen the whole thing. The ambulance arrived with blaring sirens, paramedics swarming like angels in blue. They splinted Timmy's Liga compound fracture of the femur. They set in, whisked him away. A sheriff's deputy, Ramirez, pulled up in his cruiser, taking in the scene with a practiced eye. Mrs. Ellis pointed at Susan. She did it. Cut right through the post with that saw, knowing the boy was inside. Deputy Ramirez approached Susan calmly. "Ma'am, drop the tool." She complied, babbling about association rights and property standards. He wasn't buying it. "You're under arrest for felony assault and endangering a minor." The cuffs clicked on, and as they led her away, she shrieked about lawsuits and connections. It was the first satisfying moment in a day of horror. At the hospital, Emily met us, her face pale with worry. Timmy needed surgery pins in his leg, months in a cast. The doctors called him lucky, a few inches different, and it could have been his spine. Lucky? The word burned. I paced the waiting room, replaying the collapse in my mind. This wasn't just a dispute, it was an attack. Why would anyone risk a child's life over a backyard fort? That question gnawed at me, fueling a resolve I'd last felt in uniform. We had the arrest, but justice demanded more irrefutable proof to bury Susan for good. The next day, our home turned into a war room. Timmy was stable but scared, waking from nightmares of falling. Emily hovered by his bedside, while I focused on building our case. I called Alex, who had security cameras angled at our yard. "Got the whole thing on video," he said, showing up with his laptop. The footage was crystal clear. Susan approaching, glancing up at Timmy's head in the window, then starting the cut anyway. My stomach twisted clear intent. We synced it with Deputy Ramirez's body cam, obtained through a records request. Side by side, it was damning. Her determination, the collapse, my desperate rescue. But we needed eyewitnesses too. I visited Mrs. Ellis, who was tending her flower beds with shaky hands. "That woman is a bully," she said, inviting me onto her porch. Her account matched the video perfectly, the saw's color, Susan's focused glare, even my flannel shirt. "I watched you and Timmy building all morning. It was heartwarming." Then she came with that machine like a vandal. Her statement added the human touch our evidence needed. I compiled it all, edited videos with timestamps, transcripts, a timeline that left no room for doubt. Copies went to the DA, our civil lawyer, and Emily, who wept but nodded fiercely. "We'll make her pay, Dad." Yet the why lingered. This felt personal, beyond HOA rules. The no-contact order should have kept Susan away, but she ignored it. The association called an emergency meeting at the community center to address recent events. I attended quietly with Alex, sensing trouble. The vice president, Harold, stammered through platitudes about unity. The room buzzed with anger questions about liability, safety. Then the doors flew open. Susan burst in, disheveled and defiant, violating her order in front of everyone. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She grabbed the mic. "I'm the victim. Years of service, and this is how you repay me." Deputy Ramirez, there for security, moved in. But Susan's son, Brandon, a hot-tempered 20-something with a rap sheet, snapped. "Hands off my mom." He yanked a pistol from his waistband, waving it wildly. The room went silent, hearts pounding. I calculated angles, ready to act, but held back. This was the law's domain. Deputies flanked him, voices calm. "Put it down, son. No one gets hurt." Tension stretched like a wire. Brandon's eyes darted, sweat beading. Finally, he lowered the gun. They cuffed him and Susan, leading them out amid sobs and shouts. No shots fired, but the drama left us reeling. How had a fort dispute escalated to armed threats? It sparked heated debates in the neighborhood about mental health, gun control, the dangers of unchecked authority. Susan's bail jumped, her family crumbling. Still, the motive eluded me. I pored over association records budgets, minutes finding nothing. Then an anonymous email. "Check the sale at 4:15, Elmwood Avenue. Ask Harold why he's silent. Elmwood was the house behind ours, recently sold at a premium to an out-of-town investor. Records showed the deal closed days before the incident. I confronted Harold at his neat bungalow. He looked haunted, finally confessing. Susan bullied the board. Disagreements meant harassment. The Elmwood buyers demanded a clear pond view, blocked by our maples and fort. Susan got a $15,000 referral fee to resolve it. He handed over printed texts. View obstruction must go. Handling personally. Check ready. Greed. Pure and simple, she chose cash over a child's safety. This revelation transformed the case. The DA, Ms. Harper, grinned at the evidence. Premeditated assault for gain. Charges escalated. We filed civilly too, but Susan's insurance denied coverage. Her act was intentional, not accidental. No payout for crimes. It cornered her financially, making her desperate. Whispers spread. Angry calls to board members, veiled threats. We stayed vigilant. Her desperation peaked with witness tampering. Susan's nephew, Derica Thug with prior cornered Mrs. Ellis in the grocery lot. Old ladies forget things. Accidents happen. Change your story. Alex's dash cam caught it all, audio faint, but visuals stark. We turned it over. Ms. Harper revoked bail. In court, the judge was furious. You undermined justice. Susan was jailed pending trial, her empire crumbling. The board ousted her unanimously, fearing lawsuits. Harold stepped up, fair and unassuming. The civil trial was our arena. Attorney David Lawson laid it out. Bylaws ignored, videos shown, Mrs. Ellis testifying steadily. Timmy's video deposition broke. Harchie described the mean lady and the pain, his voice small but brave. The jury deliberated briefly, awarding $200,000 medical, $600,000 pain, $1.2 million punitive. Susan deflated, ruined. Criminally, she pled to felony assault, sentenced to 3 years. Brandon got probation, Derek a misdemeanor. Justice served, but debates raged. Was the punishment enough? Did greed justify such risk? Neighbors split on HOA reforms, some calling for dissolution. Healing came that summer. Clearing the site, neighbors arrived unbidden. Alex with tools, Buddy, our jokester plumber, with concrete, Mrs. Ellis with snacks. Deputy Ramirez brought hardware from a station collection, his K-9 partner entertaining kids. We rebuilt Fortress Thunderbolt taller, sturdier, with a slide and flag. Timmy, cast off, climbed triumphantly. Cheers erupted. It symbolized unity over division. Months later, life normalized. New families moved in. Kids played freely. One hardware store run-in with a paroled Susan Grayer. Subdued, we nodded silently. Closure without words. The fort stands strong. A reminder. Protect your own. Stand firm. What do you think about the violence and injustice in stories like this? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you side with strict community rules or believe they breed tyrants? Express your stance. I'd love to hear how you'd handle such a betrayal.